All right, well, let's kick off the show with having a look at what the media is saying about property. So in the media, first of all, we're going to look at Australian Property Investor magazine. Good little magazine. If you don't subscribe, then you probably want to look at it if you're serious about property. There was an article in there, quite an interesting article, about 16 suburbs that are losing their stigma. Great little article. It's quite interesting. You know, when you look in the media, you'll often hear articles about the top 10 suburbs or the hottest suburbs. The problem with that is, by the time a magazine's announcing that it's a hot suburb, it's now a cold suburb. Like, you want to know about it before it's hot. And this is one of the closest I've ever seen to an article that's talking about what could be hot. I'll give you an example. One of the suburbs they've mentioned is Maroubra in New South Wales. Now, I mean, they have had an incredible growth period, but there's this idea that they may be losing their stigma. Now, Maroubra is, of course, close to a jail. It does have some housing commission in it, but it's also in the eastern suburbs of New South Wales. It's right on the beaches, and it's probably the cheapest. Well, it is. It's the cheapest of all of the eastern suburbs beaches. If you look at it, its neighbours, Coogee, Bronte, Tamarama, Bondi, all of those suburbs are extremely expensive. Yet Maroubra isn't yet sharing those prices. Apparently, according to this article, Maroubra may be going in the direction of starting to share those values as well. So you could potentially get in and still get a good buy, but it looks like there could be some good growth coming that way. There are some more development approvals happening in that area, and developers have already started moving in and really starting to clean the area up, render some of the old properties, develop some of the blank land, and we're starting to see some increased values in that area. Some other examples they're talking about, Redcliffe in Queensland. Again, this was always thought of as, I suppose, the poorer cousin of Brisbane. People would move further up north into Redcliffe. However, the government has sunk a lot of money into a development in that area. We have seen some new planning coming through in that area. It was previously known as a retirement area, and we're starting to see some increase of growth there as well. So Redcliffe could be a place to look at, somewhere that's losing the stigma that it has had in the past. Other examples, if you're in WA, they reckon that Mirrabooka could be a good place to go. Redbank in Queensland is another one. I've had a little bit of involvement in Redbank. I've looked for deals there, but haven't really found anything that could stick. An interesting one for New South Wales, another interesting one, Parramatta and Marrickville. Now, Marrickville, I would dead on say, is an area you should look into. They are getting some incredible growth, and it's really not that far from the city. There's some fantastic renovation potential, there's some fantastic development potential, and even investment. You can go and buy an investment property in Marrickville at a good price and get yourself a really good yield. It has in the past had, I suppose, a bit of a dirty feel about it. It just wasn't as nice as some of the surrounding suburbs, such as Newtown or the closer suburbs in the city, going into the city. But we are starting to see some more infrastructure from the council. We're starting to see some nicer properties come about, and you will see more growth in that area. They've already had good growth, and I reckon you're going to see more in that area as well. Port Adelaide in South Australia is one to keep an eye on. Frankston in Victoria, apparently, it's losing its stigma. Tasmania, for those of you that are in Tasmania, Margate is apparently one to look out for, and Sunshine in Victoria. Cabramatta in New South Wales. Now, I was surprised to hear this, because if ever a New South Wales suburb had a stigma, if that's what you want to call it, Cabramatta would have been it. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. It had really, really bad PR, or media, if you will, around the area, as being a bit of a drug haven. Well, it is awesome to hear that it is starting to shrug some of that, and we're starting to see some really big growth. It's reinventing itself, and it is starting to tell a new story, with the local town centre really being reworked, and we're starting to get some more density in that area. So have a look at that article if you hadn't have a look. Now, there was another article that I thought was interesting in Australia Property Investor, and this is about tomorrow's millionaires. Now, I suppose this pulls the heartstrings for me personally. It's basically talking about meet the young investors under 30 buying property and building wealth fast. Got a picture of a bloke there who's already amassed almost $1 million in property. Another young guy who's got his first property at a really young age. 26-year-old Joseph, he has 4 properties. this is just awesome to show that you can be young and start amassing a portfolio of properties for yourself. Now, these guys can do it at that age on a limited income. What are you able to do if you're older, if you've got some equity? If you have a smart investment strategy, you really can start creating a portfolio for yourself of properties. I think one of the things to be careful about when you're creating a portfolio of property, don't become a slave to it. Now, a lot of people go out there and they try and amass as much property as they can in a short period of time. Great idea, because property obviously does go up in value in most cases. So if you can amass $1 million worth of property for yourself in 10 years' time, if you're going on the old saying that property doubles every 7 to 10 years, then you could potentially have $2 million worth of property. And that growth in equity is your growth. The loans aren't increasing, just the equity is in the property. So that's why you want to amass as much property as you can. The problem is, what is it costing you to hold $1 million worth of property? Can you afford the loans? Can you afford the upkeep? Is your rent strong enough to be able to help you hold that portfolio? I've met people that are literally spending 95% of their income holding their property portfolio, and they're living on nothing. They're going backwards, creating other debts for themselves because they really haven't created it in the right way. So I'd say the right amount of property to collect is the amount that you can afford. So make sure you've got a diverse portfolio that's maybe bringing in a bit of cash flow. Some of it can be negatively geared, but don't go too overboard or you end up losing it all and the strategy doesn't work. But check out that article. It is inspiring to see some young blokes that are out there and creating some wealth for themselves.